No tariffs, no tax cuts. So are tariffs price hikes or tax cuts? I say they're tax cuts.
I mean, many economists would say that they're tax hikes because ultimately a consumer will pay for some of those increased prices.
Look, that debate has been going on since the first term, and most economists just don't agree with us.
No, Peter Navarro. Most economists do not agree with the stupid assumption that he's now claiming is a debate over what tariffs, the effect of tariffs are. And most economists just don't agree with him. Also, people's wallets don't agree with him. Reality doesn't also agree with you. Here's one of those experts that knows what they're talking about and what's happening with these tariffs that doesn't agree with Peter Navarro's dumbass.
So how much of the economy do you think is priced into the markets at these levels based on the data that we saw last week?
I still think the tariffs are not priced in now. We've had a lot of front loading, and so the effects of the tariffs are still, the worst is still ahead to be felt. And the tariff levels we're ending up with now are not that far below Liberation Day. I mean, it's running around a 15% tariff now, but I think it's headed towards 20%. Liberation Day, when the market was really panicked, it was around 22%. So I still think that the worst on the tariffs is still to come. And the data pretty consistently across the board has been looking at a downshift.
Why do you think the worst is yet to come on the tariffs?
Because I think you've had a tremendous amount of front loading that occurred in the first half of the year, anticipation of the tariffs. And I still think the tariff number that we're ending up with is higher than some expectations. I mean, 15% became the new 10%, and you still have these product-specific tariffs that are going in, and we still have some wild cards out there like Russia.
There's lots of reasons why these tariffs are a disaster, and they may get much worse. I mean, unless there's more pauses and pushbacks and more negotiations of nothing. But currently they're standing even worse numbers than he pitched out on April 2nd. There's people who know what they're talking about that disagree with Peter Navarro. Once people talk about what people are disagreeing with, questions get asked and he answers them, or he doesn't answer them.
We'll go here and then here.
What's your takeaway from this PPI?
Sir, come on. You're violating the rule here, right? We're talking pharma. Yes, ma'am.
Don't violate the rule. You can't ask me about tariffs. You can't ask me about the Trump economic policy that's horrific, that we see is destroying our economy. Follow the rules, bro. What do you think this is? Like free press or something? Like you can ask me any question that you want? Because that'll make me look bad. Can we stop and pay attention to the answers that people who are in positions of power are giving to us about our money, about our country, about our government? And they're many times the same people who said they don't want people taking over our country, that ice people out, that have no transparency, that are all up in your business, but they're doing all of those things. So Peter Navarro doesn't want to answer that question. What he wanted to talk about is this new order, or this potential new order that Donald Trump wants to put in place as far as lowering prices on pharmaceutical drugs. You won't be surprised as the vehicle that he thinks he should use to make sure that happens.
With what's likely to be pharmaceutical tariffs that are coming when the Department of Commerce issues that report, and if it recommends tariffs, we'll get them. So the idea, and this is like, you're an investor network, this is big time for investors. There's billions of dollars to be made here if you can identify who the actors are who are going to win from this.
I guess, so you mentioned the tariffs coming. First of all, do we know when? And second of all, doesn't that make that harder for the U.S. to secure and for the drug companies to produce? Because they can't just flip a switch and manufacture in the U.S. overnight.
No, look, the tariffs are likely under Section 232 because it's very clear that we have a national security crisis. Going back to the pandemic, China threatened to drown us in a sea of coronavirus. I don't know if you remember that. But stay focused, if you would, just on what this order does.
It's a state of emergency. We got to slap tariffs on prescription drugs. So as we see our prices go up on everything else, as you see the effect of tariffs, which he's still denying is what the effects of them are, we just might slap more tariffs and have that be the solution to the problem on prescription drugs. He wants to talk about what is it they're doing with these prescription drug prices and these tariffs. This is what's happening.
The Trump administration says it expects to announce possible tariffs on pharmaceutical imports soon, putting doctors and patients on edge. The president says the tariffs will start small, but could increase by up to 250%, which would be a gut punch, especially for cancer patients.
Affordability of prescription drugs is a real problem for U.S. consumers, even those who do have insurance.
Mariana Sokel with the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health says 30% of cancer patients don't fill their prescriptions now because they cannot afford them. There's also been a shortage of important chemotherapy drugs, and she warns the tariffs could also lead to further drug shortages.
We are actually exposing patients to perhaps higher costs and deeper affordability problems or shortages because some manufacturers may choose to not sell to the United States.
There's so many consequences for these types of policies. But again, too many smart people that work in the field that they're saying they know everything about. This Trump administration says they know everything about just by saying, I said so. Continue to warn us of the effects of what he's doing.
Brand name drugs already cost 3 to 4 times more in the U.S. compared to other developed countries. And even if the drug you're prescribed comes in a generic, expect those prices to increase too, since generic drugs are more likely to be imported from Europe. The Trump administration is touting the goal of lowering prescription drug costs in the long run, but Sokol fears the move could impact drug development.
There is a possibility that the uncertainty in these markets can discourage investors from investing in these industries. And of course, drug makers, without that investment, they will have to make difficult decisions where they want to continue to pursue drug development.
He doesn't make one bad decision. There's reasons why he bankrupted absolutely every company that he's ever worked under and created, even though they still tout his business acumen as something that we should trust. His business acumen sucks. His business acumen had him a loser, but he goes out and touts it as if it's real. This false sense of whatever reality he's creating that we've bought into, it's kind of our fault for continuing to buy into what we know this guy is. He's a complete failure.
Auto factories, AI factories, and every other, they're all coming in because they want to beat the tariffs. Because if they open here, they don't have to pay tariffs. If they don't open here, they have to pay, in some cases, 200%, 300%. I haven't even set some of the tariffs yet. I'll be setting tariffs next week and the week after on steel and on, I would say, chips. Chips and semiconductors we'll be setting sometime next week, the week after.
What rate are you looking at? What rate?
I'm going to have a rate that is going to be lower at the beginning. Then that gives them a chance to come in and build, and very high after a certain period of time. And if they don't build here, they have to pay a very high tariff, which doesn't work, so they'll come and build.
Does that sound like someone who's thought things through? He's talking about how next week, steel, chips, potato, Lay's and Doritos. Yeah, semiconductors. And then what rate, you ask? 55%? I don't know. Does that sound like someone who knows what they're doing? He's not hiding it. He can't hide it. He's too stupid. He can't hide it. He's dumb. But he just does things and he destroys things. He sends in his goons to say, steel, chips is the best thing ever, despite what you're seeing. Here's Stephen Moran, who he wants to appoint to replace Jerome Powell as the head of the Fed so that they can lower rates based off of nothing, because none of it makes any sense. Here's more of the propaganda.
Thanks, Maria. Well, as you know, at the moment, excuse me, at the moment, my priorities are continuing to help the president and the rest of his team create the best, most vibrant, most booming economy in history. And I got to say, that's all going very well. You know, the economy is just on fire. Inflation is under control. The president has scored win after win after win with the One Big Beautiful Bill, restructuring global trade, bringing in trillions of dollars of commitments. It's just been a tremendous string of successes, and I expect it to continue like that. However, with respect to the Fed, you know, as you know, I do have a nomination coming in front of the Senate, so I have to let the Senate do its process, and there's limits to what I can talk about with respect to the Fed. But, you know, what they do is very important, and I'm looking forward to, if confirmed, being a part of it.
That guy sat there and said that the economy is on fire. I mean, he's actually right. It's on fire, except it's burning is the problem. But he's had all these victories, win after win after win. How about you name those wins? Oh, he's restructured the global trading market against us. He's brought in trillions of dollars of our money. Like this, we already know this. Enough people have debunked this, but they just keep saying it. And Maria Bartiromo sat there and said, yeah, sure. Things are on fire. It's great. It's wonderful. Yeah, sure. She said all that when just yesterday she had to report this.
Breaking news right now, and a spike in the producer price level of inflation. Take a look. Markets are selling off here because the July PPI came in up 0.9%. Worse than the estimated up 0.2%. This is the headline number. It was expected up 0.2, came up 0.9%. Year over year, it is up 3.3% versus an estimate of up 2.5%. Now, when you look at core, it's also troubling because in the core PPI, it was up 0.9% versus an estimate of 0.2%. Year over year, the core up 3.7%, also higher than the estimated expectation, which was up 2.9%. These numbers have caused markets to drop.
Why didn't she ask him? You mentioned all these wins, Stephen. But just yesterday, I reported that the producer price index sucks. I also reported that the core inflation sucks. And this is bad. Where are the wins? Why is this working? She's not a journalist. She's not even someone who's curious enough to ask those questions. Because if anybody sits from one day to the next and has to talk about the same subject that she talks about, they would go, man, I remember yesterday, there were no wins. It's weird. Why do you say that? I mean, just out of simple curiosity. You know why? Because the concerted effort is to make sure that people believe whatever it is they tell them to believe. Don't forget, this guy also fired the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics because his job numbers sucked. And also now inflation numbers are measured through that same bureau as well. So, when that goes off the rails, that's going to suck too. But now with just the producer price index numbers, you might not be surprised as the answer that this water carrier had for that being bad news as well.
You could not justify lowering rates when you have rising PPI and CPI.
Well, I also think you have to question the source. This PPI number also comes from the same folks that brought you the jobs numbers. I'm sorry. Listen,
facts are not facts
seriously.
in this world.